Welcome to the Friday at 4 podcast series with your host Charles Luttrell and co-host Steve Kent.
Steve, good afternoon. Welcome back to Friday at 4, episode 31. That is a correction from last week. I do apologize to you and the audience. I said 29, but it actually was 30. This is 31.
All right, Chuck, great to be here. And thanks for the clarification, because if somebody's looking for it and they're not going to find it, there's going to be some confusion. So thank you.
That already happened. Jen had reached out to me about that and said, "Hey, you said episode 29." I said, "Yeah, I know. I got to correct it."
Oh, well.
Oh, well. Moving on, right? So, how's the day and what do you have for us today?
The day is good. It was a
Okay,
good day, a good week. Made some really, really good connections, which is nice.
great.
So what I thought we would talk about today is if you already have a business and you're thinking about exiting that business, there's three different areas. Again, my opinion, there's three different areas that need to be addressed. Is the business ready to be sold? How are you doing financially? And what do you do with your time when the business is gone? So let's start. Smart statement. Let's start at the beginning. Okay. I went to
Let's start at
college.
the
Okay.
let's start at the beginning of the end.
Start at the beginning of the end. When I was a little boy, now,
Back when the dinosaurs and I was
back when
playing
dinosaurs roamed
cats
the
and
earth.
dinosaurs.
So you have a business, and for whatever your reasons are, you want to exit that business. Now, what people think is, hey, I have a business, I'm going to put it up for sale, and boom, it's going to sell. Well, the first reality check says 65% of the businesses that are put up for sale never sell.
Really? Is that high?
65% never sell for any number of reasons.
Yeah.
So now let's focus on the 35% that do and why they do,
Yeah.
or at least some. I don't say why because there's multiple reasons, but some of the reasons
Sure.
why they sell.
hmm
So, and I do suggest that you do get somebody who specializes in this to help you. I'm just giving you some high level stuff. And I do have someone, if you're out there in the listening world, if you're interested, I do have somebody that does this and is really good. And
Nice.
yes or no, I get nothing for this other than to help you. So there is no compensation for me recommending somebody. So
This
just
isn't
put
an
that on the
affiliate.
table.
This is not an
No, no, no.
affiliate speech.
No, I just wanted to say that because, usually people recommend and they get something back. I'm getting nothing other than helping you. Okay.
Yeah.
So one of the things you want to look at is, do you have every process documented? So if a new person comes in, they know what to do every step of the way, regardless of what happens. The reason for that is repeatability or duplicatability, whatever you want to call that. Anybody new can come in, cuts down training time, cuts down questions, and it just makes it easier. And if somebody happens to be on vacation, it's then easier for somebody to fill in that role and still get the job done. So it's
Yeah.
important to have things documented. Another
Standard
thing,
operating procedures.
absolutely operating
Yeah.
procedures.
Standard
Um,
operating procedures. Yeah.
yeah, and you know this from what you do. It's, you got to have
Got it.
the operating procedures, part
Yep.
of what you do with your clients.
Yep.
Then you want to sit there and say, do you have key employees who, because of that person or persons, you have certain clients, certain vendors, certain social media presence? If you have those key people, what happens if those people aren't there? Who's your backup? Because again, somebody looking to buy will say, "Ooh, Charles is my key person for X. Nobody else can do it." What if Charles goes on vacation? What if Charles gets another job? What if Charles decides to retire?
Yeah.
So that's a concern that you have to be aware of. Another concern is along those key person lines, the owner. If everybody knows the owner and that's why they come to the business, what if the owner's not there? Because again, you're selling the business. They're buying the business, they're not buying you.
Yeah.
But if you are the business and you're not there, there is no business. So
Yeah.
again, be careful of those types of things. Um, Look at location, look at social media presence. There's all kinds of things that should be looked at because the ultimate goal of exiting the business is to get the most you can for it. So look at everything you have that can possibly be done to increase the value of that business.
Yeah.
And that process of I'm thinking to sell or exit. It doesn't mean sell because you could just sign it over to a family member, or it doesn't have to be sell to an outsider. But that process of I'm going to sell to actually selling could be a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. One of the things again, I want to sell the business. I think it's worth $1 million, and nobody looks at it because in reality it's only worth 200,000. So you have to, again, work with somebody, increase the value. Now, maybe your $1 million is fantasy, which is a possibility. Maybe it really, with all this stuff, maybe it's only worth 500,000.
Right.
But is 500,000 worth it to exit and go enjoy the rest of your life? Or do you want to work until you die? Because that's what's going to happen because you can't sell it.
Right.
Again, there's no right or wrong, but things to think about that most people don't. How loyal is the staff? How long have they been there? Again, the training, all those things come into effect. So
Yeah.
that's really the first piece is
And
looking at,
not to cut you off, right? I
okay,
think what I like about when you talked about that, right? Because then you went into, kind of like a valuation for what the business is worth, and I like that when you hit on that, it made me think about what you do from, you know, the financial side of it. You hit it right. So you collect this money. Is it going to be enough for you to survive when you leave the business? Or do you have to reach out to Steve to say, hey, I've got $500,000. How do I invest so I can live comfortably until the day I pass on?
right.
Good points, man, right?
Yeah, yeah. So those are great points. And thanks for the segue into the second piece.
Damn.
Didn't even know that, but thank you for the segue.
I did not know that.
Did not know that. Okay. So the second piece is the financial side. And it's while you're still in business and after. Because while you're still in business, most people who have a business earn, assuming it's a profitable business, they earn X dollars, and that's what they use to support their lifestyle. Their house, their cars, their kids, their vacations, whatever it is, that's their lifestyle. But in that is also debt, credit cards, mortgages, car loans. But if the money's coming in from the business, write-offs or not, however you do it, accounting, and again, it's not my thing. Um, but what happens now when the business income is not there? How do you continue the same or potentially a better lifestyle now that you don't have the business?
And that's the key, right? Because inflation, cost of living, everything rises year after year. Now you just have this money that you exit this business. How do you survive, right?
So again, that's
Good
two
points.
sides to that.
Yeah.
One is before you exit, and one is after you exit. So the before you exit says, I'm using my income and I'm paying all these bills. So it would make sense, and a recommendation is to take all those bills while the income's coming in and start to pay down the debt. pay off the credit cards, pay off the mortgages, prepay your mortgage if you can, which will also save you a ton of money on interest on the back end. So while you have the income, pay everything off so you need less when you do exit the business. But in addition to that, while you're still there, set yourself up for when you exit. So have the cash value life insurance so it builds cash tax free. Have the annuities that will give you the income for life when the business ends. So now when you do exit, you have this, hopefully, this big amount of money. Take that, some of it keep for emergency funds, and some of it put into long-term investments like annuities, which protect from the market. And again, today we know the market's getting killed yesterday and today. Don't want to get into that. But if we have another downturn, you want to know the money you have is going to last and is not going to shrink with a shrinking market. So you also put some of that money into an annuity. So now you have income for life with a lower expense base because a lot of your debt's been paid off. If you want to go do something part-time, consult, feel free on a part-time basis. It'll keep you busy. And that's the financial part. Is what we don't want to do is go backwards and say, hey, I'm 55, 60, 65, whatever I am, and I can't do anything because I have no money. You owned a business to make a profit. You build a lifestyle to live better. You deserve it. You do. You deserve it. So why not take advantage of what you worked so hard for? The third piece says, okay, I'm now in that 35% that I've sold my business, but now I have all this time on my hands. What do I do with it?
Yeah.
So while you're still working, if you don't already, learn how to play golf, learn how to play tennis, pickleball, whatever is out there today, which stuff I don't do. But
Find
if that,
something for you to keep your
but
occupy
find
your time.
something, volunteer, do something to
Yeah.
keep yourself busy. Join different clubs. Not everything has to be a cost. Some things could be free.
Yeah.
Go to a local club, play cards, play chess, play something that will occupy your time, not cost you money, but also keep your brain functioning. Because if you don't
Do
keep it
reviews,
going,
do reviews for Q.A.C teams so you keep yourself busy and you can go out and have
mhm,
fun in businesses.
there you go. So if you're looking for something to do, give Chuck a holler. He's looking to expand his business. Give him a
Sorry
holler.
about that little plug there.
No plug. I
It
think
just
it's a
seemed
great
perfect,
idea.
right? Yeah,
It's a great idea. You can work
yeah,
for Chuck. You can work for me. You can work for both of
yeah,
us.
yeah,
Um, so that's something to think about, is how do you occupy your time?
yeah,
Because I've seen too many cases where a person sells a business who's working 5, 6 days a week, now is home 7 days a week. Causes friction in a marriage, causes friction with the kids because they're not used to being home and they don't understand people have their own routines. Now
yeah.
you have the time, you're impeding on those routines, and then you get this. It's not intentional, but you're intrude. So if you had the business and you had a set schedule, put the shoe on your foot that somebody comes into you and messes up your schedule, your daily routine, you wouldn't be happy. Well, the spouse, the kids, it's the same way. So in order to
Yeah.
keep that sanity, if you will, go find something to do. Again, a golf, a tennis, a pickleball, a chess, go walking, do whatever you do. So there's a bunch of different things to do if you're looking to exit your business. You may even cut a deal with the new owner that says, I'll stay on 2 days a week for a minimal amount of money. Now, if you do it right, number one, it keeps you busy 2 days a week. Number two is it still gives you that little extra money that now that you're out of the business, you wouldn't have had before. Keeps you sane at home. It's a win all the way around. And then the new owner knows that you're there just in case something goes wrong. They can tap into you. What would you do? How'd you do this? Why are you doing this? So you can add value. It's almost like being a contractor. 2 days a week for a year, 2 years, whatever deal you can cut. Yeah.
Guy, back in my first business, back in probably around 2009-ish, 2010, he had a business where his main thing was, if you're struggling with your business, I'll buy it from you,
Hmm.
flip it, turn it into a profitable business, and sell it.
Wow.
Yeah. And he made himself a millionaire doing this. He wrote a book and everything. Yeah.
Do you remember a guy by the name of Marcus Lemonis? He was
Now,
on TV on one of the cable channels,
hmm
and I forget the name of his show, but he did exactly that. He would go into a struggling company, take a piece, an ownership piece. In some cases, it was hefty,
yeah.
but he invested his money and he reinvented, put up sometimes a new name, a new sign outside, inventory, um, machinery, the works. And when he went in, he did almost like what you, but on a much, much larger scale, because he had like millions to deal with. But he would do almost like what you do when you go into a restaurant and you say, okay, let's chat. Where are you today? Where do you want to be? Let's make improvements. That's the review that you do. It's the added value.
Right.
That's what he did. But again, on a much, much, much larger scale because he had the millions.
Right.
And and he would take like a 50, 60, sometimes 70% stake in the business. But the people understood, I'm struggling, I'm losing money. If you turn this business around, even 30% of a profitable business is better than 100% of a losing business. And he did similar to exactly what you're saying. There's also a show out there called Bar Rescue,
Mhm.
which is also on the cable stations, where I forget, John Taffer is his name. He goes into, his thing is bars. I don't know if it's restaurants. I think it's more bars or bar/restaurant.
Mhm.
Um, and he goes in and he also redoes the whole thing for a piece,
Right.
and he invests his own money. So it's the same thing. If you're exiting your business, why can't you be that person to go into either similar types of businesses, or because of your business experience, you can go into any business and say, look, been there, done that. This is what turned my business around. I can do it for you. Whatever you charge, whatever days you can put in. But again, it's found money, keep you busy. So I love the idea. Love
It
the
all
idea.
depends on your reasoning behind exiting your business, right? Burnout,
Mm-hmm.
age, retirement. I mean, there's so much that goes into
Right.
play with this, whether you're exiting just to want to start something new.
Mm.
That's a great idea. I like that. You
Yeah.
exit because you want something different.
Right.
Yeah, why not? Try something new.
There are obviously the baby boomers. We know that, of which I'm one. There are more and more people every day, like by the thousands, entering the baby boomer generation.
Yeah.
They're looking for things to do. General statement. They're looking for things to do.
Sure.
Um, they have the experience, they have the connections. So for them to walk into a business and say, look, I've had my own business X number of years. I've been looking at yours. I can offer you some assistance at X price. This is where you are today. I'll get you to this space, and if I do, you pay me X dollars.
Yeah.
It may be
Yeah.
worth it to a money losing business or one that's profitable but wants to expand but doesn't know how. So that's a great way to do that too.
Yeah. I'm more interested in, when this conversation started about that whole 60%,
Mm,
that when they're on the market that don't sell. That intrigues me because it makes you wonder, what are they not doing Or where did they fail to not sell the business? Is it not profitable? Is it not something that people are interested in? Right? I know there's a lot of different reasons,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
to me, that intrigues me to know. Gee, I wonder why that happened, so I can avoid that for myself. Right? So I don't want to be that 60%. I want to be that 30%.
Well, part of it again could be the business is too small, nobody wants to buy it. Part of it is it may not be profitable. Part of it may not be profitable enough.
Hmm,
Part of it is the owner is unrealistic in what they're asking for it. Could
gotcha.
be
Yeah.
that there's no processes in place. Could be there's um, they're concerned that it's all owner. Owners
Hmm,
disappears, no business. There could be any number of reasons why, um, and that number came from the person I know who does this full time and is really really good and obviously much more detail than I gave. But I got that from him, and I trust him. He knows what he's doing, so
yeah.
that's why, or some of the reasons why businesses aren't selling. You also have to remember on that end is the business broker who wants to make a certain profit. So, and I do not know what the profit margin is, but let's just say hypothetically it's 20% of the sales price. Well, are you going to spend time with a business that's valued at 100,000 or a million? So your profit is 20,000 or 200,000. Where would
Hmm,
you put your time? That the million
yeah.
dollar business, it's the same
Yeah.
thing. So again, there's many, many reasons why businesses don't sell.
Yeah. And it's interesting because when you first said that, I immediately went to the negativity of, oh my, it's not selling because, well, nobody wants the business. Instead
That
of
could
thinking
be
about it
one
from
of
the,
them.
yeah, instead of thinking about it from the positive side, like,
Mhm.
well, it's not that it's not profitable. It's not that, the owner, it's just that it wasn't a business that should have been in business to begin with. And nobody
Correct.
wants it. I mean,
Correct.
I don't know, there's so many things to that, that's I would love to see some data on that. I'd be really curious to see that.
Yeah. And I'm
That
sure I
amazes me.
can get it from him because, or he
Yeah,
can tell me where it came from and then we can go look at the article
right. Yeah, it's very
before he
interesting.
studied it. Yeah, it
Yeah, what a,
is.
what a good topic. Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
good conversation because that's
Mhm.
part of, we're going to be looking at this in our future. It's like, are we
Yeah.
exiting or are we
Yep.
selling or are
Yeah.
we going to give it to someone? And what are we
Right.
going to do with this?
Right. See, my business, my goal is one of two things. Either, well, it's going to grow. So one of the things that are going to happen. Either I'm going to give it to my kids, but they have to be licensed because, again, in the financial side, you have to be licensed legally to get paid and to transact business,
Yeah,
or I can sell it.
yeah,
And if I can sell it and it's big enough, I can typically get 2 times annual revenue,
yeah,
which could be huge.
yeah,
And again, in my business, there's no salaries, there's no quota, there's no inventory, there's no brick and mortar. It's all, on a computer. You can be sitting on the beach. So it's much more attractive when you don't have all those expenses behind it. Now it's
right.
like 95% income.
Yeah. I'm looking to stay at this till the day I die. Yeah. My goal is to be in an RV out in the middle of somewhere, doing my next show or doing my next
Hmm.
video, whatever it is. And that's my last day.
Yep. I like
My
it.
hourglass finally ran out and Chuck was living out in his RV
Yep.
out the back. Look at the stars. That's what I
Yep.
want,
Do
you know?
things to what you want to do them,
Yeah.
not to other
Yeah.
people.
Yeah, because the word retired to me, I don't want to retire. I don't want to lay around and find a hobby to do.
Mm.
I want this business I'm working on to be my hobby, to be my business slash hobby for the
Mm.
rest of my life. That's my personal
Right.
choice, you know?
Which is enviable. Yeah.
Because this is not only a business, but this is a fun business. And every
Mm.
time I talk to it about people who don't know me,
Mm.
they're like, oh, man, I bet you have fun with that. Yeah, I do. It's a lot of fun and I love what I do. And that
And
is
yeah.
what my retirement is in an RV, traveling the country, traveling the world, doing my business till my last day.
And that to me is the way to go, because the other side of it is you're an employee. You going in 9 to 5, punching a clock, getting yelled at, screamed at, have to fight for raises, promotions, building somebody else's dream.
Yep.
So
I
what
don't
you're
want to build
doing
anyone
to
else's
me is
dreams.
the way to go. You love it.
Yeah.
You're out there, do what you want when you want. To me, that's the ideal. It really
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
we'll see. I'm on that path, and I'm going to continue that path, and
Yep.
I'm going to just keep on driving.
I like it.
Yeah.
Keep on trucking. Who was it to keep on trucking?
Yeah.
Was that the
Keep on
Grateful
trucking.
Dead?
That's
Was that the
I
Grateful
think it
Dead?
was. I think it was.
Could be. Could be.
Could be. If
Trucking.
anybody
Keep on
knows that,
trucking. I
hey,
forget the
hit
name
it.
of it.
Hit
But I
us in the
love that song, by
comments.
the way. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Steve, another great conversation.
Yep.
Appreciate your time coming on Friday at 4 because
It's 4 o'clock somewhere.
yeah, you're getting it, buddy. I
I'm
love
working
it.
on it.
Yeah. Thanks for your time. Great episode. You know,
Absolutely.
as always, good conversation.
Yep.
Enjoy the rest of your day and have a great
You
weekend.
too.
Everybody, have a
Yep.
great weekend.
Enjoy. Thanks.
See
Take
you,
care.
buddy.
Bye.
You too. Bye.
You've been watching the Friday at 4 podcast series with your host Charles Luttrell and co-host Steve Kent. Thanks for watching.